Hi, it's Erika from Sewing Machines, etc., where your sewing success matters most. So some of you know that Nick has been after us to do a bound buttonhole video for you for quite a while, and I know I was like, oh, I don't know how to do it. So I'm kind of in the same place where a lot of you are. Bound buttonholes, don't want to touch them because they seem scary and difficult. But he's persistent, and I persevered, and I actually learned a lot. So what I want to do is just take you kind of through my learning curve that I went through, and I have developed what I think is a very easy method for a bound buttonhole. It's not in any of the books that I reference though. So first thing I'm going to do is just show you the different types that I tried. Those ones you'll see in books. You'll find videos online, other videos apart from ours. And then I guess I'll just show you some tools that I used, and then of course the actual method. So come on over here with the camera, Chris, and I'm just going to first off show you some of the other things that you'll see out there. The two most prominent methods seem to be the strip method, which is this one, and then there's something called, I think this is called the pinch pleat method. Now they work, but they tend to get fussy, and I don't like fussy. I especially don't like it if you have to start hand sewing. I'm not a fan. This was my first attempt at my own design, and it was not working, so ignore that. It's kind of a failure. This is as far as I got with the strip method. However, the next step was to hand stitch the little lips of the welt closed. Again, not a fan of hand stitching. And then once you had that done, the idea was to fold this back and sew with your sewing machine across this section here. And you can see how tiny, how difficult that would be. So I just said, no, that's way too hard. Don't want to do it. This was the pinch pleat method, which I do use. The first step of what I'm going to show you is similar to what we see here. Basically fabric on top, and it's pulled through the buttonhole. And then you have to kind of fold that facing back, kind of pinching it, pleating it on the back, so that the folds of the facing create your little welt in the front. Again, that can be very fussy. As soon as you put your pins in, it tends to distort the fabric a little bit. Things can shift easily. To hold it secure, probably the best idea would be to do a hand tack in there before you go ahead and do a stitch in the ditch around the buttonhole. So again, that had some issues that I wasn't too keen on. So anyways, I want to show you what I ended up with. This is, what can I call this? Maybe we should put a survey out there for names. Erika's super special something or other bound buttonhole. I think it looks good. It's a little bit bulky because there is going to be one extra layer of fabric in here from either of these other methods. However, I think the result is quite nice, so that's what I'm going to show you how to achieve. First thing I'm going to show you, hello again. Just want to show you, I did do a little bit of prep work here, and I'll just tell you what you need to do. Your pattern will of course tell you to interface where you're going to be placing your buttonholes. I also marked the back of my interfacing, and I did use Clover's white marking pen. This is a marking tool which when you draw the line is invisible, but it shows up as a nice bright white mark on your dark fabrics, which is perfect, and the mark will disappear with the heat of your iron, which is also great because the last step you're going to be doing is ironing your bound buttonhole, or pressing it rather, and it'll make those marks disappear. So mark your fabric. I have two lines here. You could pretend you would make a ladder all the way down the inside of your facing where your buttonholes are going to be, and then these vertical lines indicate the end of my buttonhole, so we're going to have buttonholes running along like that. The other thing I've done is taken two scraps of fabric, and I've just run a basting stitch down in here. Now I am using white thread, it's a contrast, of course you would use a matching thread. So I've run a basting stitch, and this is down the lengthwise grain. Lengthwise grain has very little stretch to it, and it allows you to not interface your, these are going to end up being the lips of your welt buttonhole, or your bound buttonhole rather, or your welt pocket actually. You can use this method for welt pockets as well. And then I folded it back and just gave it a good shot of steam. This is a boiled wool, so it presses beautifully. Incidentally, it's a product that we carry also, and isn't it a gorgeous color? And then the last little piece you're going to need is just a scrap of matching fabric as well. Okay, so we're going to take you over to the sewing machine now, and I'll show you how we're going to get started with sewing. So one of the little accessories that may be helpful for this next step is the Clear A presser foot for Husqvarna Viking. So it's my standard presser foot. It's a clear plastic foot. Husqvarna Viking actually has a kit with Clear A presser feet. One is just regular, and then you've got your edge stitching and your edge joining foot in there as well. Clear feet really just help with visibility. So I'm just going to snap that on. Get my other bits and pieces out of the way here. And the stitch that I'm going to use is a regular straight stitch. However, I'm going to move it as far over to the right as possible. Now when I move my needle over to the right, all the way over, the distance from the needle now to the edge of the presser foot is approximately, I'd say it's about 2.8 to 3 millimeters, so just over 1/8 of an inch. That's what you want, because we're going to be going in a rectangle around to create the shape of our buttonhole. And of course, 1/8 plus 1/8 equals 1/4 of an inch, which is a good width for a bound buttonhole. I'm also going to decrease the stitch length to, on my Husqvarna, I can go down quite small. I'm going to decrease it to 1 millimeter. A smaller stitch helps you to be very precise with where you start and stop the edges of your buttonhole. It also eliminates the need for a back tack, so your stitching is going to be very secure. So the next thing I'm going to do, remember that little scrap of fabric that I had previously? I'm going to slip that underneath, and I am working upside down here so that I can follow the lines of my that I drew on my interfacing previously. Okay. So what I want to do right here, my presser foot actually has got little red markings, so I'm going to line those red marks up with the white lines of my fabric. The edge of my presser foot is going to run along what will be the opening of the buttonhole, and I'm starting right on the corner. So again, a very small stitch. I'm just going to follow this around. I have to stitch along the line that we've drawn. And I need to oh, perfect. That worked out well. Now when I rotate again, the edge of my presser foot is along the center stitching line. There we go. I'll take that out. And there's the rectangle for the first portion of our bound buttonhole. Designer diamond owners, you actually do have this stitch in your buttonhole menu, so check that out. I forget which menu it is, but you've got it ready to go. Okay,